I had stomach aches. I was constantly throwing up, very painful periods. Something was definitely wrong. I wanted to be a part of that fight of teaching other women and basically advocating that there is more so than a pill.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync. Today, I have another client of mine, Mackenzie, and Mackenzie is going to share her story that's a little bit different than the other clients who have been on the show before. Because her story, we weren't working together to prep her to come off birth control. She was actually someone who was experiencing really painful periods that were really impacting her life. She'll share more about that in her story here in a second. But whenever she went to the doctor to try and find solutions, advocate for herself, she kept hitting roadblocks because her only solution, quote unquote, that was given to her by her medical providers were just go back on birth control. And that was something that she did not want to do. And so she really felt stuck between a rock and a hard space of, okay, well, I don't want to go on birth control because I know the side effects. And she had tried that and it had really bad side effects for her mental health. And at the same time, she knew that there was something deeper going on, but she didn't have any other solutions of how to actually heal her painful periods. And it was very genetic, right? Her whole family, the women in her family also suffered from painful, debilitating periods too. So I think that was another piece of her story as well of like, well, it's just part of being a woman, or that's just something you're gonna have to suffer with. It's part of your genetics. But we really got to the bottom of what was causing her painful periods. And she was able to heal those with all of the hard work based on the functional lab testing we did and the root cause healing. And her journey is really, really one that I think so many women can relate to. So, Mackenzie, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start from the beginning here of tell us a little bit. I know I gave like a brief overview, but tell us a little bit about your hormone journey up until this point.
Yeah, sure. So this all started for me when I was 12, very beginning of sixth grade, if I want to go back to the exact time in my life. I had stomach aches. I was constantly throwing up, very painful periods. I never started out really easy with getting my cycle at the very beginning. Um, yeah, from the very first, something was definitely wrong. Um, then that began with the first doctor's visit and birth control. The birth control pills, the first thing that came out as a solution.
So this was
So,
at 12 years old.
yeah,
Okay. So I want to make that point. At 12 years old, their only solution was birth control pills for you.
pain meds like Tylenol and ibuprofen and Motrin and all of that, and birth control pills. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's where we started. Um, from there on, at that age, I had also had really bad acne. Um, also coming from my family history, I had really bad acne, constantly just hormonal breakouts that hurt and felt like cysts. Um, again, really painful periods where I was almost never at school. And I got through sixth grade up until my senior year of high school. I got attendance notices for never almost attending a full term of classes because I missed all the time due to painful periods. So that was always fun. As much as I tried to get off the birth control, I was dismissed constantly. For nothing else was going to work, that this was the only solution. Until after high school, they started to affect my health. I had tried the pills, I tried the Nexplanon in the arm, I tried the Mirna, I tried every birth control thing you could probably offer somebody. And as I progressively got older, these symptoms and aftermath only just got worse. As I got older, the nausea and the vomiting got worse up until college. And I was not able to survive on my own. So I went to the doctor almost 3 times a week. And that, of course, got very expensive, knowing that I was not getting the answers that I wanted. I learned about health coaches. I learned about other alternatives, holistic medicine, and I started to deep dive into anything other than going to a doctor at that point. Um, Lots of testing, lots of regular, normal blood result panels. Everything was coming back normal. And of course, to us, that seems like, yay, it's normal. Like, that's, of course, we want to hear normal results. But the end for someone who's suffering tremendously, who's always living out of her bedroom, never being super social, having to cut plans because I was in so much pain, not being able to eat because I was afraid of throwing it up. I was very almost at my wit's end until obviously hearing about Taylor. So,
So at what point, so when did you stop birth control? So you started at 12. And
Mhm.
you went through a bunch of different types to try and, so you were still experiencing painful periods even on the birth controls? Like they
Oh
didn't,
yeah.
okay.
hmm Even from there, I thought getting off was going to be the best option. I got off in 2022 when I went to a holistic doctor, specifically someone who had their doctoral background, but only focused on holistic medicine. And she told me the first thing I needed to do was get off.
Mm,
Of course, it's scary knowing being off birth control when you've been on birth control like pretty much your whole life.
yeah.
But I knew that this was obviously the first step, as in it was immediately noticeable, the blood results and everything else, that what I was on was affecting my mineral balances, everything else in my body. It was
Mhm.
instantly noticeable in all the results. So from then, from 2022 on, I worked on many options of seeing people to kind of balance out being off birth control and my hormones. Of course, that turned into going, same year I got off, it turned to going on antidepressants because they thought my mood was shifting from my birth control. And of course, that only just made it worse. And
Mhm.
that didn't help. It didn't help PMSing. It didn't help my diet. It didn't help fix anything. So then again, I was asked to go back on birth control, but I knew then and there, to advocate for myself, I said, no, I'm not going back on. And that was the best thing I could ever do for myself.
So your mood was worse off birth, like when you went off birth control.
It dipped right off at the very end, um, because I was experiencing obviously just the downhill of being off
Yep.
of it, um, really bleeding heavily, all of that.
Yeah.
Still vomiting and throwing up, still feeling really nauseous because my body just didn't know how to be normal and to just balance itself out.
Yeah.
Um, so then again, it was always a pill. That was always going to be the solution. And of course, I had trouble swallowing pills at the time. And that's something from learning to swallow a pill at a really early age. Um, that was a bummer because I wanted to just be able to eat normally and function and sit in a chair normally and just be, I felt like I wasn't like everybody else.
Mhm.
Even though I know so many women go through so many symptoms, but I felt like an outsider because I was having to skip out on a lot of life events just because of my own body.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really important to showcase because this is something, you're right, a lot of women go through, and it's not just how it affects you physically, but it's like you're really highlighting the emotional angle of like missing school, like being able to get the education you wanted because you were in pain, or like it being more difficult for you to do that, and social gatherings, friends, events, all that kind of stuff. And I know it was also, when we started working together, you're obviously not in your teens anymore, you're working,
Yeah.
but you would kind of have to like miss work, or you'd have to white knuckle your way through it, and you would pass out or throw up at work because of the pain.
And that's the interesting part is towards your 20s, when you started getting the big girl jobs and you're out of college, it still affected me to the point where I almost had to file for disability,
Yeah.
which sucks because that doesn't qualify as a disability in most corporate America jobs.
Yep.
And now I work in the healthcare system, so it's even just a little less different from that. At the same time, I wanted to be able to just have, again, be a normal, as what I perceive to be normal, be a normal functioning adult, and be able to do all the other things that you're able to do, eat everything that you're able to eat, enjoy life, have a social life, um, not have the fear that I was going to be spending all weekend in bed because of pain.
Yeah. Yeah, your
So,
life really revolved around your cycle.
oh, 100%. I It affected my relationships. It affected everything because people wanted to understand as a woman what you were going through. And not everybody can understand that. Only you know how you feel in your own body. But that was tough. And that's where you would really find out, who was there to really support you during these times. But yeah, I wouldn't, again, I was trying to fight for change in every possible way I could, whether that was spending money that I knew I needed to put aside for my health. I knew obviously we get trapped with so many different ads for things, um, so many recommendations. We're trying everything, literally trying everything on the market just to feel better.
Yeah.
And the thing is seeking out the right help. Especially, I knew from the beginning, talking to the right people, like I would go to someone that necessarily didn't necessarily mean I was going to get help from them, but trying to find the person that I could connect with to understand everything that I was going through. So then I knew I was paying for the right amount of advice, and someone who was going to actually guide me towards feeling like
Yeah.
my true self again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's props to you because you did, unfortunately, the hard way, but like you learned to advocate for yourself and
Mhm.
to resist well, just take birth control, or this is part of being a woman, or this, you're kind of destined to have this happen. You were like, no, this isn't right.
Mhm.
And did that inspire your own like health coach, like going into health coaching and stuff, like your own hormone history?
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as I learned that I was getting better and I was seeing like even just a tiny bit of result, I knew that I wanted to advocate for other women and other people around me. I've learned literally every month I meet somebody who's probably going through the same thing as me, and they have been told the same thing, that birth control is your only lifesaver. They've been misdiagnosed with big things like endometriosis and PCOS and having ovarian cysts, all that I was diagnosed with at a point in my life. Um, which only to find out from today that I don't have any of those. And I was misdiagnosed
Yeah.
so many numerous times by different doctors. Um, I wanted to be a part of that fight of teaching other women and basically advocating that there is more so than a pill. There's
Mhm.
so much more to healing your body than just a tiny pill or something that they have to insert into you. That, of course, is painful. Watch so many girls, especially over social media nowadays. Um, it's painful. Nobody wants to go to the gynecologist and get something inserted into them, knowing that it's only with the long list of side effects, that it's only just hurting them more,
Right.
when it's being advocated as healing you.
Yep, absolutely. So you
Yeah,
mentioned going to, doing a lot of your own research and
sure.
going to a lot of other providers. If you had to give kind of like a highlight of like the things you had tried and what worked, and we'll go into like how our approach was different and really what moved the needle compared to some other things. But before working together, would you be able to list kind of like a highlight of like what you tried, what worked, what didn't work?
Sure. So obviously all the pain meds, every single pain med you could pretty much think of. Zofran, going through bottles of Zofran for nausea. Um, Obviously heating pads and whatnot, but that didn't even do the trick. It did it for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I was back to feeling absolutely, I would have a heating pad on me pretty much all that the whole night. Um,
Which again, if
I,
you're going to work, like, unless you work from
yeah,
home, which you don't, like, that's not sustainable.
nope. And remembering to, oh man, restrictive diets. Tried the gluten one, went gluten free for almost 6 months.
Yeah.
Still had nothing to do with that. Tried being a pescatarian, tried cutting red meat out of my diet. Again, that didn't help. Cutting dairy, low FODMAP, um, literally probably almost every diet you could probably think of. Then again, none of it was ever showing a result as what they hoped, because all of it just came back normal after we
Mhm.
tested after 6 to 8 months of a long process.
Yep. Yeah. So lots of diets, lots of band-aid medications, lots of your labs look normal, is what I'm
Yep.
hearing.
Even if you exercised, you did some yoga, you did something, some minor light exercise, and you did the diet, you did the pill, you took the crazy things that they would give you, all the crazy elixirs and all these different
The hormone
things.
balancing supplements, like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Tried everything. And I even got to that point now where I wasn't even listening to doctors at a point. I was just finding things off social media that I
yeah,
was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm going to try because even if it's not approved by the FDA, I'm still going to try.
yeah, yeah. You
I
were
was
desperate.
yeah, I was that's exactly the word. I was desperate.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. So we connected and through a mutual friend, and we got on a discovery call to kind of chat through because you, understandably so, because you've tried so many things, seen so many providers. You mentioned this earlier, like you were a very perceptive, skeptic buyer because you had been through a lot and you'd been dismissed a lot. You'd been, really let down. I guess that's like the best word that I can think of. So, what made you decide to work with me, and or were there any apprehensions in that because it wasn't your first rodeo?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely when our mutual friend definitely mentioned to you, I was going through a health coach at the time. She said, I might have someone that really would understand you 100%. I said, okay, hit me with it. Like, come at me. I want to meet this person. And of course, knowing that I'm trusting someone
Mm,
off the internet, I was like, okay, that's interesting, and hearing again, you're paying a price for something, but knowing in every single penny of what you're getting to me was really important, down to every detail. So I felt reassured from the very beginning, knowing from that discovery call that every single penny, regardless of what, you know, I was getting I was still being understood. I was still going to get effective results. And to me, I took the leap. Again, I was at that point where I was desperate to find a change.
yeah.
And I didn't want to go back to a regular doctor. I rather right now where I live in particular, it's a 5 to 8 month wait for a doctor. For primary, for anything, honestly. It's not even just for a internal medicine doctor. I was like, I'm going to try this and give it a shot. And it's honestly, it's always a risk. People think, it's always a risk trusting
Yep.
someone that you've never even met. Um, you don't know what 6 or 7 or 8 months is going to look like for you outside of meeting with this person. But then again, you want to feel better. That's all you keep in your head is you want to feel better. You want to feel the best possible version of yourself, and you want to start living like a normal human being to what you suffice as normal. Um, and to me, that was my motivation. And I knew instantly. Sometimes you just know from meeting all these doctors now in your life that have gone through different doctors from all these different states. Sometimes you just know in your heart and your gut that this is someone you can trust.
Mm.
When
Oh,
you've been able to
that's nice.
connect with that person, yeah, you know, it only takes a few conversations and a few different topics to know that, okay, like this could really work out. And of course, lo and behold.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me
Yeah.
feel good. Blushing over here. Um, yeah, so I mean, it really does sound like you were still in that space of, and I do think that's a strength of yours of like, okay, let's figure this out. Like you're a very big problem solver and knowing something deeper was out there. So I know when we met the first time, we really dug into like, okay, here's what makes this different, like based on the labs we're
Mhm.
going to run and based on really focusing on nutrition, like getting to the root cause versus like just throwing a lot of supplements out, which we do utilize strategic supplements, but it's not just, I think functional medicine is a lot of times, and like functional nutrition is reduced now to lots of supplements and like fancy terms like gut killing and and we utilize those things, but at the core it's really looking at nervous system, looking at nutrition, lifestyle, sustainable habits, and then adding those layers on if we need to do some gut killing, which we'll talk about because you actually did need that. And, adding smart supplements on there, but they're not like the core of what we do because there's a method to the madness with how we solve these things from an internal perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't even know half that stuff, like nervous system. had never even heard those words from a doctor.
And that was
And
huge
especially
for
no one
you.
looks at lifestyle choices. Like
Yeah.
the fact that what you're doing, that you're even your own job and the people that you're surrounding yourself with, your environment, all of that plays such a huge part, but no one ever talks about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they only talk about really what you're putting into your body at this point nowadays.
Hmm.
Um, no one thinks about all the other aspects. And that's something that when you brought that to my attention, I had realized that I needed to really make a shift in all
Well,
of that to feel
yeah,
better.
let's talk about that because you made some really big life decisions and changes after we unveiled some of the things that we saw with your labs.
Yes. Oh, yes. I knew from most of my labs, in terms of lifestyle choices, I was working in a job that was like the most unsupportive of a woman's health at that point. I was passing out at my desk and having to go to the bathroom all the time and all of that. And that was seen as a distraction of getting away from my job.
Mm.
Um, Knowing when I got those labs back and kind of just putting it out in the air and having all these discussion calls, especially with you, I realized just saying it out loud, I was like, okay, this this needs to change. I was also still around people who didn't advocate for me, um, who thought I was just having painful periods and they felt bad. That's all I mean, they didn't realize that I was actually really, really hurting inside.
Mhm.
So I shifted all that. I made the choice, knowing that there might have been some tiny little setbacks, but knowing that I am where I am today, it's probably the best decisions that I've ever made. Um, because now I feel probably the best I ever have in 25 years of living.
Mhm.
Um, and it only just takes the constant reminder that it's only if it's just a tiny setback to get to where you need to be, then it's worth it. And
Yeah.
seeing from those and hopefully like I know I'm still with you and we're gonna retest and everything like that, still advocating and still pushing for yourself of knowing that I'm already feeling better. I want to keep going. I want to get even better. Because there is never to that point where you can always, how do I say this? I still want to wake up every day and feel like the best. I want to enjoy everything that I do. Um, love what I do, be able to just get through the day and not have to think, like, come home and have to deal with all my issues that I had, which I don't like to consider them issues anymore. That's what the good part is. Um, I still want to continue to feel better.
Yeah.
And so I still want to keep seeing what I see. I want to see more than just normal results. Because to me, normal results is normal and it's what I've seen, but then again, it's not normal.
Yeah, you want to have optimal results. And that's the thing with health. It's like a journey. It's ever evolving and things are going to come up. That's why even I test my labs every single year or like multiple times a year just to like kind of check in on things because that's life. And so really figuring out what does it look like in this season? Where can I fine tune things? And
Mhm.
where can I, keep going in the right direction? Because one thing we saw with you that you're mentioning is your minerals were vitamins and minerals were super, super low. And this was, you mentioned earlier doing a bunch of restrictive diets and unintentional underfueling because you were trying to be the healthiest you could
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
to get rid of the period pain because that's what, we're told on social media by functional doctors, conventional doctors. But that was actually working against you because that restrictive way of eating was resulting in vitamin and mineral deficiencies, which are the raw materials for healthy hormones, metabolism, detoxification, gut health. And so that was one thing we really worked on is bumping up your total calories,
Mhm.
specifically carbs and fats, because you were really focusing on protein because that's really all the rage right now. But carbs and fats are so, so important for hormones. And then specifically fine tuning with foods, with targeted supplements to increase the vitamins and minerals that you were low in. And stress has a big part to play with that too, because if we are we can be repleting all we want, but if we're depleting because we're stressed, for example, your magnesium was really, really high on our HTMA, which means that you're actually losing it. You're burning through it very quickly. And that's the first mineral burn through with stress. So when I saw that, I was like, this makes a lot of sense for Mackenzie. So we had a conversation about that. I know the first couple of months, we really talked about stress support, not just through nutrition, but like nervous system, making those big life shifts, which you did inch by inch. And that made a huge difference.
Oh, 100%. And that's also, it's kind of jaw-dropping to know that you hear the word hormone and estrogen and progesterone, all those big terms that they throw at you when you're going to a doctor, but you don't realize that your minerals and vitamins play such a
Yeah.
huge. I honestly, you hear about them, but they're on the back end in terms of trying to get better. And I didn't realize in those shifts when we did start really focusing on all that, that I actually was starting to feel better. And I was like, okay, wait, it's not about those big hormonal words
Yeah.
that play the biggest part in your healing. It's like you said, it's the magnesium, having more magnesium, um, cutting out the alternative, protein diet that everybody's on, maxing out on protein, knowing that I had to put more carbs and fats and learning, especially from that point, when people say carbs are really bad for you and you need to cut carbs and no, like you never realize until you made those shifts how much I was like, wow, okay, like Taylor was right. Yeah. Whether
Carbs
it's
and
not,
fats are king and queen. Yes, it's so
it's
important.
you have to, yeah, just trust the process. I think that's the
Hmm.
thing. No matter what if your friends tell you, whoever tells you, oh, well, no, it's no,
Yeah.
like
Well, and
all this.
that's the big part about too, like getting support from a professional that is based on your body versus TikTok or what your friend's doing or what your mom's doing or what your doctor tells you after a 7 minute visit. Like we started with a 90-minute assessment to like dive deep into your history, your current habits, your nutrition, etc. And that's so, so important because it's individualized to you versus just kind of a cookie cutter, like here's what someone should be eating in a day. That's why you'll never see me do on like social media or anything like, here's what I eat as a hormone dietitian, because it's just, I don't like doing that because what I need doesn't mean it's what you need.
Exactly. And that's something is you feel relatable to someone that you meet, especially over social media, like, oh, she's eating these and I eat these, and okay, it's gonna make me feel better. And in the end, it's really you're very more personalized to the individual. And that's what I needed versus saying, oh, this is what works for most of my patients, and which is what you hear from a lot of doctors, that this worked probably for 15 more of their patients in the past. Great, it could work for you. That's
Mhm.
what I've grown up hearing those words a lot is, oh, I've had similar, similar patients with similar issues and whatnot. And again, once it's personalized to you and to the what my labs and all of that is when I really began to see the shift because I knew I was really being focused on as a patient, which is always super important from a patient perspective. Um, and also being again like nothing but heard and understood is also something that you want as a woman who's just in dire pain all the time.
Yeah.
No one loves feeling in pain. So
No.
it's just kind of crazy that all these little other aspects I wouldn't have not learned if it wasn't not talking to you.
Yep. Yeah. And one other thing I want to point out too that you mentioned
Mhm.
is the fact that we really didn't talk about hormones that much. I mean, we did a little bit, but
Yeah.
I want to unpack that because I very rarely, so I call myself a birth control and hormone dietitian, but I very rarely test hormones. There are certain cases, and you and I did talk about testing hormones, and we'll talk a little bit later about why we have not done that up until this point. Doesn't mean we never will, but we didn't need to because if we are just jumping straight to hormones, for example, that's a big mistake I made in my hormone healing journey, other practitioners and women make because that's what we think of like, oh, it's a hormone imbalance with our painful periods, missing periods, whatever. But that's not giving us the deeper root of like, but why are these hormones imbalanced to begin with, right? We're skipping like 10 steps of like, how's your gut health? How's your mineral and vitamin status? How's your stress? How is your nervous system? There's so many different things that we have to look at. How's your detox? So it literally just gives us more questions than answers. And so a few other things we saw in addition to low vitamins and minerals, electrolyte imbalances, with that magnesium loss and low sodium potassium. We also saw sluggish adrenals from long-term stress and slow cellular thyroid function, as well as we had an overgrowth of H. pylori and candida, which these are lesser known things when we're talking about painful or heavy periods. So those gut imbalances and that stress on the system really causes inflammation, and that inflammation can look different for different people. Sometimes it's acne, sometimes it's heavy painful periods. There's, the list goes on and on of how it presents with someone, but those were some things that gave us deeper information of like, here's what we need to target versus trying to quote unquote balance your hormones, because doing those things naturally balance your hormones.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's, you never think about the fact that stress plays such a role, especially knowing that that was one of the biggest factors um, throughout this whole journey was stress, trying to manage it. Of course, it really falls on everybody every day with different types of stress and everything like that. But nervous system, like you've mentioned a few times, nervous system had no idea what it was until I really knew that it was playing the biggest role,
Mhm.
especially from someone who has um, who's been in therapy almost her entire life, and again was given antidepressants a few different times in life, knowing that that wasn't even really the case. It was my nervous, like being in the fight and flight response mode. We hear those two things a lot. That played such a huge role in healing. That knowing that I needed to step back and focus more on those things. And we get told all the time, like, oh, focus on stressing less and focus on your mental health in order. And it's not just not even the case. There's just more to it. The fact
Yeah.
that making those really big switches for like how you advocated for me to make those switches already just again just shows like the advocacy like that already made such a huge like drop in all the symptoms that I was even just having, even
Mhm.
if they were just tiny.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And you did a really good job of just like, opening the door and just doing it bit by bit. Like you
right.
didn't just change your job, you didn't just shift
No.
relationships, or you did it all incrementally to make it doable for yourself, which I think was really good. And I think once you started doing it, I feel like it just snowballed into like even bigger and better once you realize, okay, like this is making such a big difference.
Yeah. And you know, like we all know we can't quit our job overnight. We
Yeah.
can't do things in a dramatic period. And that's the thing I already knew with lots of conversation and a lot of thought. Um, every time, especially with the job, the last job that I had, I already know I told you I was gonna like, oh, this is already a bad idea, knowing that I had said it to you just a few times. And as much as I kept saying it to you, I was like, okay, it's finally going through my head. Like
Yeah.
this is not me showing up for myself. And then again, it's always takes the effort of finding someone who's going to remind you to show up for yourself.
Hmm.
And knowing that like I could message you and be there and whatnot, um, for help, especially. That was huge because that then again made me decide like, okay, I'm telling her all these things, but am I showing up for myself?
Hmm.
Meaning, am I doing the
Accountability.
right thing for my health? Am I happy? What am I lacking? And especially at my age, I was like, okay, I'm at that point now where we're past all these points of feeling down and feeling disgusting about ourselves, and we want to keep provoking and feeling better. This is what we've paid to do. This is what we're putting money towards. We're investing. It's always
Yeah.
an investment.
Yep.
Um, and it is. It's probably the best investment you can ever make for yourself is just
Hmm.
your health. In
Yes.
any way that you can is just your health.
Yep. Yeah. And the next thing I want to talk about is this was not an overnight fix, right? So I'm curious if there were any moments, because you experienced some ups and downs with your healing journey throughout our time
Mhm.
together, which is 100% normal. And that can be really frustrating. It can bring up doubts about the process of like, oh, great, is this going to be another thing that doesn't work for me? Am I just broken? So I'm curious if we can talk a little bit more about any of those like lower points for you, because it did take some time for your body to regulate itself.
Yeah. And we do. There's times, not every day is going to be perfect, where you're smiling through it and like, oh, I'm pushing myself up to get up out of bed on the days that I couldn't get out of bed. It's not going to be an easy ride. No, with anything that you do, it's really not going to be. Hearing especially like big factor that you mentioned that I gave to you was my family history, knowing I would speak to other women in my family who went through very similar things and what they were told, those results of knowing that almost all the women in my family had to have hysterectomies, knowing that their possibility of never having kids was being told to them, I thought about my future right off the bat. And I think that's what I clung on to every night was the fact that I wanted to see myself in a certain light in 20 years, even 10 years, 5 years. I wanted to see myself happier. And I think it's finding that cling of motivation, finding just something to hold on to was something that really helped me get through it all.
Yeah.
But also, I still was able to reach out to you, and especially in the times where I felt uncertain. Like, what do I do and everything like that. And of course, you would be able to get back to me in a time, like a really super fast matter, where I
Mhm.
would be like, okay, like, she's right. And that's the thing. Sometimes all it takes is for someone just to tell you, like, hey, this is really not that big of a deal. It's common, it's okay, and we're gonna get through it.
Yep.
And that's again having that advocate. I learned through all of this was just finding the right advocate
Yep. Yeah.
to
And
get through
knowing,
it.
again, someone who knows your body,
Yeah, yeah.
your
And you
labs, your
you
body.
dread sitting there some nights knowing that if you're putting your money in the right place, especially when if you don't make much in life and everything like that, it's really to the fact that once you've seen how much money you've spent, whether it's going through your medical bills, um, and going learning, especially someone who works in healthcare and deals with health insurance every day, it's seeing those high numbers and knowing what am I getting out of this? What am I paying to get out of this? And knowing I've already seen, especially with working with you, that even just noticing the difference, I'm actually noticing something, knowing that I don't feel like it's wasting my time and my effort and my money. Like I know that's something we all think about. Um, you're seeing genuine results. You're seeing keep going. We're seeing everything that basically you kept your promise. And I know everyone can say like they talk to people who promise that they're going to feel better and promise that they want to be there. And it's not even just the promise, it's someone who's proving from what they said that they're going to do into it taking effect. And
Mhm.
that's something I obviously, from my story, getting told that I was going to feel better, that they promised that they were going to make me feel happier again. Um, and they never kept it. And
Mhm.
that's the thing is it only just got worse. It only was just someone that I had to go pay more money to go see again and again. And I didn't feel like I was having to repeat my story to a stranger 5,000 times, which is what
Yeah.
I've felt my entire life, is that I didn't want to have to keep telling my story to a primary doctor more than 10 times just to get my point across. And I
Yep.
felt like it was easy and direct right from there, where I knew that I was heard and I was shown up for, and that I was going to get the results that I was, meant to be given. And then again, it's like that was where, to me, I would use the word life-changing.
So I think some of the ups and downs that I remember for you, or like specifically you're focusing on kind of some of the like the down pieces of the healing journey, is that your periods, when you started the protocol, it took a couple months for them to get better. So you still, I remember you messaged me, a couple months in and you were like, just so you know, like I passed out at work or you threw up or something like that. It was like a really horrific period. And so I was like, okay, like thank you for letting me know. Um, and so, that I'm curious, what were your thoughts? We didn't really talk about that. Like, what did you think in that moment? Were you still like, okay, like this is part of the process? Were you like, oh shit, is this not going to work? Like, what was going through your mind?
I think I had both of those running through my head.
Mhm.
I definitely would sit there at work knowing if I was doing the right thing for myself. But then again, it is a reminder. It's a constant reminder that you even just have to get to that point, where you trust it, knowing that, hey, like the only way to get better is to keep keep doing, following your routine. I think sticking to routine was what you really gave me. You gave me that routine, um, from morning until night of like what to do. Sticking to that routine on a constant basis, um, that's how you're going to get better. That's how I tend to remind myself. And there's setbacks. There's always setbacks and knowing like, yeah, I had those times where I was passing out and I had to bring a heating pad to my own desk job. And there would be off days where I couldn't repeat the routine. You fall out, and some days you just don't get to the exact routine that you needed to be on. You don't drink as much water, all of that. But it was important to me that I didn't put myself down for that. Um, and I was honest with you about that. And some days I couldn't make it to the blood test results. I couldn't make something that we had planned on, and it was okay. It wasn't like, well, you know, try harder. No one wants to hear no
Yeah.
one wants to hear try harder, especially someone who keeps going to people and having to then again cancel what feels like most of all of your life in order to feel better. Um, they want to just obviously try again. All right, we're going at this again. Tomorrow we can start over. I know we had to do that with some supplements because I had to fall back with throwing up, for example, and being nauseous all the time. Um, it got to that point. I think that was my major setback was knowing that I had been throwing up most of my life, that this was a normal thing for me.
Hmm.
Fortunately, it's really, really not normal. But it became a normal thing to me where I could just start coughing and I knew instantly that I was going to throw up. Just a simple cough, which is normal bodily response, was to me that I was going to be sitting on the bathroom floor for the next 35 minutes because I don't know if I was going to pass out or I was going to be nauseous. And I was doing that in my own work bathroom among strangers who had no idea what was going on in my life. Um, and then again, it was all about just contacting you right then and there, being like, I've had an episode, I've thrown up, I've almost passed out, I'm having this painful period. What can I do in the moment?
Hmm.
And that was always reassuring to get, even if it was just a little thing of, this is what you can do. It's going to be okay, all of that. And I could move forward and I could get at least through the rest of my day.
Yeah.
I was focused on going day by day. I think that was really it for me. It was just making it from morning to night, and especially in and out of my own job.
Hmm.
That was the biggest thing for me was whether or not I had to get up really early in the morning from the job that I had to just making it through the end of the day and home.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I think it was, you kind of had some like ups and downs with your period because like you started the protocol, like the initial protocol, and we've adjusted it. You've gone through several phases of protocols because we had a lot going on in the lab. So we really worked on
Yeah.
nutrient replenishments, stress support, making shifts in lifestyle. And
Mhm.
then we layered in some like a gut killing protocol to eradicate that overgrowth of bacteria. But we didn't start with the gut killing because, again, we have to be strategic. If your body isn't supported, if it's depleted, if it's stressed, going into a gut protocol is going to make things worse. And so that is, again, another mistake some providers make is when they're not looking at the deeper, like all the different facets of health, just looking at the gut or just looking at one piece of the puzzle versus we look at the whole thing and we strategically phase things out of like, okay, we're going to do this first and then we're going to move on to this and then this. And so we did all of that and it took your body some time. There was like a good month of a period and then there was like a bad one and then there was, a good one, a bad one, and then it eventually started just consistently being good to the point where you messaged me and you're like, it was the easiest period ever. Because I remember I didn't hear from you when you were gonna have your period. And I was like, because we had met, I think a couple weeks before, and I like didn't hear from you. And I was like, I think that's a good sign, but I'm just gonna like message just to see. So I was like, hey, like, did you have your period? Like, how was it? And you were like, the easiest period of my life. I was like, yay. So we were like celebrating that.
No, and seriously, to even just sitting when I knew I've been tracking my cycle for the last 6 years of my life, when I would sit there knowing from my tracker that I was getting my period, I would dread it. I would even dread the first 7 days of getting my cycle because I was feeling like I was getting the flu.
Hmm.
Sometimes I had fevers. I'd have almost like stomach aches. I had chills. hot flashes, all these different just things. Especially you hear some of these words and you're like, why at someone at my age am I having these symptoms already? Because this should not be happening. Um,
Yeah, and you're in your 20s
until
for
yeah,
context.
yeah, especially yeah. And but I was having odd symptoms like this even as a teenager. I was like, why even at this young am I getting these? Um, so yeah, when I think I remember that I remember that first period of where I didn't I was just like, am I getting my period? I didn't even realize I was getting it because I wasn't feeling symptoms. I was not feeling sick the week prior. I wasn't feeling moody and all those just random rapid emotions that we usually get.
Mhm.
I didn't feel anything until I just got it, and it was still fine. I could sit through a day. I could still be present in what I was doing, still be with friends, still be with my family, not have to be running to bed as soon as I got home from work. I could literally live my life.
Mhm.
Um, and since that, since that first period of having that, I've had a few other cycles, obviously, since then, and still have the same thing.
Yeah.
I literally, not a day goes by where it's just like, okay, it's normal.
And are there other things, like other positive improvements you've seen besides the periods getting better?
Oh yeah, I definitely noticed I used to be one of those things, one of those very moody people where I would be irritated and just annoyed with everything. My mood was a lot better. My positivity became more in a positive light. Um, People around me started to notice that my confidence just in myself
Mhm.
began to just show to others. Um, oh man, what else? I was more motivated to cook better meals for myself. Um, Eat breakfast. Something that I couldn't do for the longest time was just eat a breakfast without feeling nauseous.
Yeah, remember that.
Um, yeah, I'm able to eat meals and snacks and not feel guilty and not feel all those things of what people had told me in the past. And I knew each day, even just from all of that, that I was just getting better. I was already seeing results that I've never ever seen then again in my entire life. And that to me was just having a pain, saying not, I don't have a painful period for the first time was honestly like more than like just to me, funny enough, is more like any Christmas or any like celebration in my life that I've ever had because I've never been able to say those words ever
Yeah.
until now.
Yep. Yeah. And this is a testament to, again, sometimes things get, they stay the same or they just take more time or they get worse before they get better with healing because your body, think about how long, like you were put on birth control at 12 for these issues. And you're in your 20s now and you were dealing with a lot of different things going on in your life. And so we have to be realistic with the healing timeline and giving your body space and working with someone who knows when to stay the course, when you just need more time or when we need to tweak things. So I know for you, like one of the things that we tweaked a couple of things I'm thinking of off the bat, but like we initially, because you were so low in so many vitamins and minerals, I recommended a multivitamin, but that started flaring your acne, which I knew was a possibility because that can sometimes flare people's acne. So you just messaged me. We're like, okay, let's take that out. Let's see if that helps. And that helped. And so we knew for your body that just wasn't the right fit at that point in time. And then I also gave you, when you were still struggling with some like period issues,
Mhm.
um, a PMS toolkit. And so we played around with some of those things where we upped magnesium. So you added like another magnesium mocktail the week before and the week of your period. We supported detox pathways and drainage more those weeks. Did you add the ginger cap or ginger turmeric tea or anything? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
ginger
So
played a huge role, especially with nausea. Like
that's what I
that
was
was,
thinking.
yeah, and all the inflammation. I even noticed the inflammation just from all of that with the magnesium and everything that we definitely did for the PMS. My inflammation just in my body, like bloating. I had a bloating issue with all of that. Um, how it bloated. I have
Mhm.
not bloated since then. I also used to break out like every period. That was a normal symptom of knowing I got a pimple and I was going to have my period, which is usually just a straight indicator to me that my cycle was about to begin. And I have not, yeah, I have not had a pimple. I've not
Typical
been breaking
breakouts.
out
Yeah.
anytime
Yeah.
since
That's
then,
awesome.
which is crazy to think that, again, that's a whole nother thing with acne and everything like that, that I struggled with and lost my confidence. Um, and it's crazy just to say that people notice, people instantly just notice around you
Mhm.
that you're feeling better and feeling yourself. Um, and I've been getting more and more of that lately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And you feel better. And you're right. I was just talking with someone the other day where it's just like the vibe, like you walk into a room and you can tell like
oh
people
yeah.
can feed off that energy and sense it.
Yeah. And having to show up, you want to, whatever you're doing for your job, especially you're there to show up and obviously do your job and everything like that. And I feel like then again, it's not a dread to even just go to work. Not just because of my job, but because my whole health functioning and the way I was functioning played just the biggest part in all of that. And now I don't dread having to just give myself a little extra time to prep the right things that I need to, like my meals. Um, that's the biggest thing I know for a working person is what are you going to eat for lunch that day? What are you going to make sure you eat breakfast at a time that matters? Since I get up at 5 in the morning, giving myself that room. I'm a caffeine drinker, obviously, learning to manage that. Um, just giving those little extra steps that you were able to give me in order to build throughout the day. Have snacks.
Hmm.
Encourage myself to make a snack drawer in my own job,
Yep.
just so I was constantly always showing up for myself. Those are just the little things. Having water, anything like that, making it fun. I think that was what you always kind of encouraged me is it does not need to be a down process of,
Yeah.
you know,
Like sustainable. We want it to be
yeah,
sustainable and like
yeah,
doable, not
yeah.
like this adding stress because we're just adding things that you don't want to do, right?
Exactly. Like grocery shopping became easier. I think that's always another thing is we're always buying random things. And that's what I used to be doing. I didn't know really what fueled my body or made myself feel better. And now it's easier to stick to things that I knew I needed. So it made it easier to prep meals, and find things that I liked. Kind of
Hmm.
opened and broadened my eyes to all of that. So now I pack all my lunches and I eat breakfast and don't consume as much caffeine as I used to get through the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Is there anything else that you want to make sure listeners know or any advice that you would give people before we kind of wrap up?
I was gonna say it's really not hard to show up for yourself. It seems hard, and there are gonna be setbacks, and there's gonna be people, doctors, family members, friends, whoever. There's gonna be people who tell you it's really hard and it takes time, but it is so worth it.
Hmm.
It is so worth it if you just show up for yourself at most. Um, because you can feel better. You can. There is a light at the end of the tunnel when everyone tells you that it's a hike and it's a long run, but there is light. There is lots of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And giving yourself the right expectations too, like you
Hmm.
said, it's not going to be immediate, but trust the process, trust your body to heal. And once you have the right plan and the right support that's tailored to you,
Hmm.
also taking it day by day. You didn't just look at, okay, what's this look like in 5 months? Like, even though you knew this was going to be a process,
Hmm.
we broke it down to be doable. So it wasn't this life changing, life altering thing all at once.
Yeah. And what I've learned through this whole thing is it's not about a pill. It's not, it's, one thing does not fix all. It does not fix everybody. And that's something that you constantly get told by, what's what we think of birth control as a woman, especially. It's a one pill that they tell you that fixes your whole entire life. But that's not true.
Yep.
Like, again, you've taught me there's so many aspects surrounding, balancing your hormones that really get you to feeling better. Because again, there's not one, every body is different, every woman's body is different. Everyone's
Yep.
feeling different. And rather,
Everyone's story is different. Yeah.
oh, no, for sure. And it makes you feel, especially, makes you feel better knowing that people are coming to you because you're not the only one. That's the thing is you're there because it's not just only you've gone through something and you advocated for yourself, but you're helping other people who are in that same spot as I am. Um, and yeah, we all get through it together. You don't think about that as we're all getting through it together.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why I love having, clients like you come on to really share your story and share the messiness of the journey and the positives of the whole experience because it's a very different path than we are taught. And if you're looking for root cause and lasting results that take into all the different aspects of your health and make you feel better in the long run, these stories really help get that voice out there. So I appreciate you being so open and honest and sharing all of this today.
Yeah, of course. I am always happy to share my story, and
Yes.
of course, having a platform like yours helps.
And I always like to end by talking to my guests and asking them a final wrap up question of how you are nourishing yourself recently. So this can be physically, mentally, emotionally, today, yesterday, in this season of life. But does anything come to mind for you?
I'd say right now, how I'm really nourishing myself is giving myself that me time.
Mm,
Knowing that when I work a lot throughout the week and I see some of my friends, it's really just giving myself those times right now, especially this weekend. I'm giving myself all the self-care that I can give myself and really just listening to my body this weekend and yeah, giving myself a little break
yep.
because
Giving
we all need that. We all need breaks.
Yes, giving yourself permission to not have plans this weekend because we are recording on a Saturday. So I
Yep.
asked her before we jumped on, I was like, do you have any plans? And she was like, no. And I was like, that sounds amazing. That sounds perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And for those of you listening, if you have a friend, a colleague, a family member who is struggling with something like Mackenzie was and is feeling really stuck with conventional routes of being dismissed, being told just go back on birth control, or being told this is just a part of being a woman, or your labs look normal, see you next time, then please share this episode with them because I'm sure just like we talked about, this is unfortunately such a common story and place that women feel dismissed and stuck. And there are solutions. You just need the right labs, the right support, and the right guidance of how to fix what's internally going on in your body that's leading to those painful, heavy periods. So thank you again for listening. And until next time, stay nourished, everybody.